I don't see her. But I think it's time to begin. So first off, welcome everybody to the TriMet Board of Directors meeting for April 28th, 2021. Apologize for starting a little bit late this morning. We had a meeting with the Tax Supervising and Conservation Commission this morning where they approved our, recommended and did approve our budget. It went a little long, so that's why we're starting at 9:15. The first thing that we have before our actual formal business meeting is the public forum, which is made available for anybody who wishes to testify, provide information to the board related to items on the agenda or other items of concern about TriMet. And we will try to answer those if we can, the general manager's comments, first part of our agenda. I'm looking at the list. Jeff, it looks like we only have one other person other than Congressman Blumenauer. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. I only have one raised hand so far. If any other members of the public wish to testify, please find the raise hand icon in the participants window and raise your hand. Thank you.
Good. And we usually try to limit the testimony to 3 minutes, and I would encourage anybody who has longer testimony to send it to us. And you can see, I think, on the agenda where the testimony could be sent via email or on our website. So I'm going to start the public forum, and we have the pleasure, as you can see, of having the Honorable Congressman Earl Blumenauer here this morning. And thank you so much for taking time to talk with us, Congressman. So I'm going to turn it over to you.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate your courtesy, Bruce, for me to join with you. These are amazing times in your nation's capital. I will say, some of us have been around a long time. You, Keith, I mean, there are a few of us that are geezers. Nothing like this that we've ever seen. But by the same token, you've been navigating challenging territory for over a year now, and I just want to express my deep appreciation for what the board and the agency has done to provide this essential service for our community. Right now, keeping your employees and the public safe. You've, in your spare time, you've negotiated a contract. I understand that may be on the agenda for ratification today. I really appreciate the hard work that went on both sides to reach a settlement that is in the best interests of the employees, of the agency, and most importantly, for the public. That matters a lot. We're going to be facing some choppy waters ahead. One of the issues that I'm spending a lot of time thinking about and would like to explore with you is just what precisely is going to be the future of public transportation in our community and nationally. You know, it was mind-boggling a year ago when we had the CDC recommending that people not use transit for public health reasons. We're watching the changes that have taken place in terms of the workplace. We live half our lives now on Zoom calls. What's going to happen with office space and working patterns in the future? We're all going to be learning about this together, and I don't think we're going to be returning to what we used to regard as normal anytime soon. I appreciate what you have done as an agency. Sam Deshoe stepping in an interim basis. This is a big, important job at a time of change in the transit industry, and appreciate the hard work that you've done. Seeing some new members, Laverne Lewis, particularly out in East County, which has been kind of a flashpoint at times for TriMet, and thinking about some of the people I've worked with on the board dating back to Margaret Weil as the mayor of Gresham. There were some big challenges then, and they continue. It's also great to see some young blood on the board. No disrespect, Keith, to you and Bruce, but Ozzy and Kathy, I've really enjoyed my interaction with you, and bringing that energy to the board is really, really important. Linda Simmons did yeoman's work on the ballot measure, and Lori, your leadership with the disabled community, for instance, has been really, really important. And work that you've done with the Division Transit Project. It's an area near and dear to my heart that I used to represent in the legislature, an area that I grew up and have family ties. So you bring the dimensions to the board that I think serves us well as a community. You're going to hear tonight the president recommend $85 billion for investment in transit, replacing 50,000 diesel buses. And you're, of course, starting work on that now. And we hope that we're going to be able to help you a little bit in the short term with some federal resources to move that along. You're investing in our future. It's going to be, I think, an opportunity for a low carbon future, less pollution, more efficiency. But it's, again, changes that we're all going to be thinking about in terms of how we navigate these amazing times. The cries for racial justice cover everything that we're doing. It has been I think, wrenching to see some of the upset in our community as we're trying to get our footing and speak to long neglected needs. The pandemic has exposed all sorts of disparities in our community in health, in economic opportunities, the neighborhoods themselves. Transit in general, and TriMet in particular, is a very important change agent. Transit provides the network that holds us together. Transit has provided a tremendous amount of value to the community, adding value to property, to individual businesses. The challenge we have is how to navigate that value that transit provides and try and monetize it. To be able to meet the financial needs going forward. I look forward to being your partner in Congress for federal resources, and with my friend and colleague Peter DeFazio navigating an infrastructure bill through the House, with the administration committed to a massive investment in infrastructure, and as I mentioned, in particularly for transit. I think we've got unparalleled opportunities. Not that it's going to be easy, but I think the case is made. We've already seen $1.9 trillion that's been invested in the recovery package. Some of that has already been flowing to the state, to local governments, to transit. How we move forward to build on that momentum and give people the service they want while we deal with a low carbon future, cries for racial justice, and getting our community back together after a period of great turmoil. I appreciate what TriMet has done over the years. I appreciate what you're doing now and look forward to being your partner going forward.
Thank you, Congressman. And thank you so much for your longstanding leadership in transportation and environmental issues. It's great to know we have a partner back in Washington, D.C. I want to thank you and our entire delegation and Congress for providing the CARES Act and the COVID relief packages that have really helped us ensure that we can transition to that new future over the next few years, because without that infusion of dollars, things would have not been very pleasant around here. So it's greatly appreciated. And again, look forward to helping you in any way we can back in Congress, because we want you to be successful in the things that you're talking about there. So again, thank you. I guess I could turn it over to any of the board members real quick if anybody else had any comments for the congressman before you have to sign off.
I would just like to say, Congressman, thank you very much for your leadership. It has been really a pleasure having you as our congressman, especially in my district out of Oregon. And your leadership has really been outstanding. And I applaud you for that and your steadfastness. And I just know that your heart is in the right place, your head is in the right place. And I certainly appreciate all that you do and all that you're going to continue to do in the future. So thank you.
Thanks, Keith.
And I couldn't resist the opportunity to echo the sentiment. Thank you for your leadership. And I can't imagine all of the things happening right now over in DC, but it's great to know that we have you representing us from Oregon over there, and bringing the great information today about the leadership that Biden will be announcing is tremendous news. So I'm really excited to see what the future holds for us. And I'm really excited to know that you're at the helm and that we've got you with the Biden administration in connection with this.
Thank you, Ozzie. I look forward to all of us continuing this conversation as we try and navigate these challenging waters.
Again, well, thank you, Tim, for taking the time out of your busy day. We really appreciate it. And you're welcome to listen to the entire rest of the meeting if you'd like, Congressman.
Well, I'm afraid if I tarry too long, and it would be interesting, I'm going to get yelled at because I too sort of go from meeting to meeting. But let me just say that I am looking forward later this year, maybe when things return to normal, when we're all vaccinated and it's safe, that we'll have an opportunity to visit in person. These issues that you're wrestling with are of deep interest to me, and you are going to be part of the cornerstone for how we pull together, return to normal, and what we do for the future. So please, maybe we can find some time when it's safe that we can just sit down and share a cup of tea and do a little brainstorming together.
Great. Look forward to that. Thank you again.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
All right, Jeff, you want to call the folks in order who signed up also to testify this morning?
Yeah. So first up is going to be Bill Bradley. Bill, you are unmuted. Bill, are you there? All right. So,
does that sound good?
Is that you, Bill?
yeah, we can hear you now.
We
Okay,
can hear you now, yeah.
appreciate that. Thanks for working with me on that one. All right, good morning, President Warner, assembled members of the TriMet Board, Interim General Manager Sam DeSue Jr., assembled TriMet staff, listening public, and hopefully Earl Blumenauer still. My name is Bill Bradley. I am the Executive Board Officer with Amalgamated Transit Union 757. I come before you today to speak on the recent tentative agreement between our organizations. ATU members at TriMet had the opportunity to vote on this agreement through mail-in ballots. I had the privilege of supervising the tabulation of these ballots by a team of ATU Executive Board officers from across the region last Friday. Through the bylaws of ATU 757, the tentative agreement must pass each of the three respective divisions within TriMet, which it did by large majorities. This affirms that the ATU 757 bargaining team was fighting for proposals that the members felt were important and made agreements that the members found satisfactory. The word of the ATU elected leaders must be respected, for the members of the ATU have come through with strong backing of this agreement. It has now been 566 days since bargaining over this working and wage agreement commenced, and I think we can all agree that this is an unacceptable duration. TriMet's insistence at the beginning of the wholesale elimination of the TriMet apprenticeship programs and the legal warfare that TriMet leadership engaged was, in the end, the driving force behind much of the delays. Sure, a global pandemic sprung up along the way, but that was more than 140 days after bargaining had begun. Our members had also stepped up through social unrest, devastating wildfires, and dangerous icy conditions during the span of these negotiations. After TriMet truly came to the table to discuss apprenticeships and training opportunities, the contract was settled in about 48 hours. Frankly, that's telling. Unfortunately, while a deal was made, TriMet continued to utilize a corporate lobby firm to muddy the waters in Salem on a bill that would have made apprenticeships a mandatory subject to bargaining. TriMet has failed to learn the lesson that these are extremely important and impactful issues in the workplace and should be treated as such. TriMet's legislative testimony and work behind closed doors brought forward a scathing rebuke from Labor Commissioner Val Hoyle. ATU 757 appreciated the support of a wide swath of elected leaders in our fight to discuss and modernize apprenticeship programs. The TriMet board has an opportunity to prevent the future concern of elected leaders throughout Oregon, which you could pass a resolution supporting apprenticeships. You could sign on to support the passage of an apprenticeship legislation that we were pushing down in Salem that could bring clarity to the bargaining process. And you can give clear direction and expectations to TriMet management that a healthy, productive relationship with ATU is in the best interest of our community, our ridership, and our employees. A relationship can be positive or negative, but what needs to be strived for is a partnership. ATU 757 has true partnerships with employers in the regions, from Eugene to Vancouver, where each side has the ability to give deep consideration for the other's proposals, opinions, and solutions. This does not always mean agreement, but mutual respect is never in doubt. This is something ATU would like to see TriMet board seek to find in the next general manager, a true collaborator across all key stakeholders. Thank you for your time this morning, and I strongly encourage this board to approve the tentative labor agreement with the ATU. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bradley. Appreciate it, and we are glad we have the agreement to vote on today. It's a good outcome. We hope it can build on, be a start of improving relationships, as you point out. And the board has made it clear to the interim general manager and to the previous general manager that continuing to work on relationships with ATU is very critical and important to the board. So stay tuned. There'll be more on that.
We will be, Bruce. Thank you.
Thank you. Jeff, next speaker.
Okay, next up is Lee H. Lee, you are unmuted.
Awesome. Can you all hear me?
We can.
Yes.
Great. My name is Lee Helfand. I use they, them pronouns. I am with Opal and Bus Riders Unite. I was not planning on speaking originally, but after Congressman Blumenauer spoke, I just wanted to do some shout outs actually. First, I want to say that community members have stood by ATU throughout the duration of negotiations, and we're excited with the progress that's been made, and thankful for those who really stepped up to actually engage at the table in a robust way. Additionally, thinking about federal funding and how that impacts transit locally, there are exciting opportunities to think creatively about how we can spend that federal funding in ways that really support the most impacted community members. Specifically, with Bus Riders Unite, we represent low-income, transit-dependent, and riders of color. We're really hoping that we can either expand the low-income fares program or expand other programs that increase access for our communities. And we're excited to work with you all to do that. I've been in touch with John Gardner, and he's been super supportive in doing some of that community outreach to see how community members can engage in those conversations. And I also just want to do a shout out to Laverne Lewis, who was able to attend one of our BRU meetings recently. And that kind of community engagement really helps strengthen the trust that our community members can have in TriMet. We hope to see more of that in the future, and welcome you all to come speak at our meetings and answer questions. It went really well, and we are just excited to continue to engage in thinking about increasing accessibility and hopefully even a pathway for what it might mean to go fareless. I think we can be really creative in where this money is coming from and how we're funding these opportunities, and how we can actually make the changes that are beginning to pop up in lots of other places across the country as well. But I think that's it. Thank you. And you can always reach out to me lee@opalpdx.org. Thanks.
Thank you for your testimony this morning, Lee. Appreciate it. Jeff, is there anyone else who would like to testify this morning?
I have no more raised hands this morning.
All right. Well, with that, I'm going to close the public forum, and I'm going to call to order the regular business meeting of the TriMet Board of Directors for April 28th, 2021. So with that, I'm going to go right into the board reports. And I'm going to call first on Director Bauman for a report on the Committee on Accessible Transportation. Director Bauman, are you ready for one this morning?
Yes, good morning. Here's a quick report. The CAT met last week on April 21st. Interim General Manager Sam DeSue visited and reported on several matters, including a recent Lyft customer survey, which shows that 94% of Lyft customers are satisfied with the service. And that's a tremendous result, and it's actually up from the last survey. And I need to apologize somehow, despite wearing a mask all the time, I have a cold, so I apologize. My voice is scratchy. Next, Pat Williams gave a report on safety and security. He talked about efforts to improve safety on the system, including an increased presence on buses. And he described efforts to use data analysis and training to reduce operator assaults and identify people who repeatedly cause disruptions. John Bell, Senior Manager of Customer Information, talked about efforts to make MACs and bus announcements and signage more accessible to people experiencing disabilities. We discussed in particular the challenges around scrolling on LED signs on buses and MACs. Those scrolling signs are, for some members of the community, difficult to manage. Finally, Jesse Stemler provided an update on the Division Transit project, including bus delivery and testing, and that is the report.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions or comments by the board for Director Bauman? Hearing none, then let's move on to the Metro Policy Advisory Committee, MPAC. Director Wade, do you have a report this month? Is she muted or?
Oh, I just unmuted myself.
Okay.
Hello and good morning, board members. I was unable to attend last month's MPAC meeting due to a commitment to moderate an anti-Asian hate crimes panel. So Jeffrey Owen from our team attended, and it was a pretty short agenda, but we'll just cover the highlights. So there was a presentation on 2020 compliance report that was from Metro Council, and there was also a quick update in terms of the 2021 MPAC member roster, as well as the 2021 Community Placemaking Grant applications, which I mentioned before, I believe, in a previous MPAC report, that those are going to be great opportunities for agencies as well as different community-based organizations to really come up with a plan to better improve their neighborhoods around several of the priorities that are that Metro Council is looking for. And I believe it was a quick meeting. I don't know if Jeff is on to add anything else, but that is the report today. And there is an MPAC meeting happening today at 5 p.m.
Thank you. Jeff, are you on? Did you have anything you wanted to add? I guess not. Is there any questions for Director Wade? Okay, hearing none. Let's move on then to the Transit Equity Advisory Committee, or as we call it, TEAC. Director Gonzalez.
Hello. Thank you very much, President Warner. The Transit Equity Advisory Committee met on April 13th. I was able to attend, and the agenda began with what is now becoming a standing item, the General Manager's search update. I was able to provide some updates on the latest activities of the committee. And we then went into the topic of a fare study. TriMet's been conducting a fare subsidy study that looks at other jurisdictions and models for fare subsidies, really to try to answer the question, how would or how could a fareless system work? And they were able to report on some of those findings to TIAC. In the room were some of the partners that have been involved in this study. Opal Bus Riders Unite is both a TIAC member and was participating in the continued research that will move forward on the fareless program models, and was all very much forthright in willingness to work with TriMet to continue to explore these models. So there is a goal to report back to TIAC in the fall on the research, on the findings of this research, and to provide some recommendations on how to pursue externally funded fare subsidy pilots in the future. So this work is ongoing. And then there was an update on another very topic of high interest to TIAC, the reimagining public safety. We had some staff from TriMet step in. Marla Blagg and Marissa Clark were giving updates on the reimagining program. So there was some training curriculum, training plans that have been developed, and a safety response team that they were able to talk about to TIAC. So there was some good questions about that and the next steps for the project. Let's see. And then finally, to round it out, there was an update on the TX survey. The staff is beginning to build out the work and focus on the next year for TIAC members. So the members were invited to provide some feedback and a short survey from their organizations to really start understanding what the individual TIAC member organizations feel are their highest priorities, and how we can kind of understand them better so we can bring their interests into the agenda. So, good things ahead as we learn to kind of move the ball forward as a committee. And I'm happy to answer any questions. That was the end of the report.
Thank you very much. Good report. Questions or comments for Director Gonzalez?
Barring any questions, I'd like to close with a shout out to some of the folks I've been seeing out in the procurement team. I do a lot of work in the community with small business associations, and it's been remarkable to see TriMet staff from procurement out making the message very loud and clear that TriMet's open to doing business with our local vendors. So I wanted to say thank you to Lester Spittler, Aiden Gronauer, and Gerald Fields, who have been doing a fantastic job of representing the agency outside.
Wonderful. Thank you, Director Gonzalez.
Thank
Appreciate that. Director Bauman, would you like to give us an update on the General Manager Search Committee?
Yes, the search committee consists of me and Director Gonzalez and Director Simmons. We have been meeting on a regular basis. On behalf of the committee members, I want to thank, again, members of the community who've provided input on the knowledge, skills, and abilities that the board should look for in a new general manager. We are still accepting comments on the GM search page at the TriMet website, and we certainly welcome comments from the community. So this process is going to be picking up pace coming into May. In mid-May, the search committee will start looking at the applicant pool, and will narrow down a list to 3 or so finalists. In June, the full board will interview those finalists. We're also organizing a community panel made up of a cross-section of people from throughout the community who will interview the finalists as well, and will provide feedback to the board. We are still on track to name a new general manager before the end of June.
Thank you, Director Bauman. Questions, comments for Director Bauman? Any of the other search committee members wanted to make any comments too? Feel free. All right, I'm not hearing.
I just want to publicly thank everybody out there in the community that has stepped forward to accept the requests to form part of the the search committee process. A major part of this process is going to be from having an opportunity to hear from parts of our community. So special thanks to everyone out there that has accepted, and I really look forward to a great process ahead.
Thank you. All right, with that, let's move on then to the general manager's report. Mr. Dessou, it's yours.
Thanks, President Warner. Good morning, President Warner, board members, the public, and our employees. Thank you for being here today. This morning, we will be sharing timely information to you. First, several important announcements concerning the COVID-19 pandemic and vaccinations. Also, I'll brief you regarding our March ridership, and then we will provide you an update about the team effort between TriMet and PBOT that's working to make our transit system faster and more efficient. And also, during my time as interim general manager, I want to celebrate each month just a few employees. I want to bring them as my guests to the board and introduce them to you and let you know how great our employees are and give you an opportunity to meet them. So I'll start and begin just over a year ago, about 13 months since COVID-19 pandemic brought our world to a halt. It changed our lives and really challenged us to adjust how we deliver service to the community. I'm thrilled to share some news that as of Monday, TriMet began hosting on-site vaccination clinics for all of our employees. Our operators, other frontline employees, mission critical workers who must travel to our facilities to keep us running, and so many other employees throughout TriMet have shown tremendous dedication and courage throughout this pandemic. While many employees, including frontline employees, have been able to get vaccinated at local clinics and pharmacies, several of our operation and maintenance staff have struggled to find appointments that work with their schedules. So by setting up clinics at our operating facilities, we are making it easy and convenient for them to get their shots. We are very grateful to the governor's office, our OHA, our VLT, our leadership team, the ATU for helping us to get the vaccines and provide them to our employees. I just want to thank you, the board, I want to thank the public, and again, I want to thank the ATU for this effort here to really put us in line for these vaccines. Additionally, TriMet is helping members of our communities that we serve to get to vaccination appointments. Our Lyft paratransit team is continuing to show its commitment to people in need. Lyft has begun transporting people from underserved communities to the convention center to receive their vaccine shots. We are coordinating this effort with an organization that's called the Giving Tree. The initial focus will be to transport those with mobility issues, but the plan is to eventually lend this service to as many as 900 people within our region. Just as Lyft has performed nearly 1,500 grocery deliveries for our riders during this pandemic, we've delivered meals and volunteered in various roles at Meals on Wheels during this time. I just want to say Lyft and the entire TriMet team are continuing to help our community through the pandemic, and well done. And my heart goes out to all of our employees. I really appreciate that. Moving on to our March ridership. So let's take a quick look at March. TriMet provided just under 3.5 million trips in March of this year. That reflected a decrease of about 37% since March of last year when the pandemic was emerging. Our weekly bus ridership is down just under 56% from pre-pandemic levels, and our max ridership is down about 61% from pre-pandemic levels. West ridership has dropped as well, more than 78% since March of 2019. Again, that's comparing ridership not to March of last year during the lockdown, but to the year before when our transit ridership was quite robust. Also keep in mind that service levels remain much lower on West and a bit lower on Max and Bus. However, we do expect our customers will begin coming back on board as vaccines become more available to more people. And we look forward to that day. We are doing things already now to start the recovery of riders. And one of those efforts is to enhance transit and keep our buses on time. Experts say that transit will be the key to re-energizing our economic and economy in a post-COVID-19 environment. Throughout the pandemic, TriMet and the Portland Bureau of Transportation have continued to collaborate and maintain our commitment to making transit better and keeping our buses moving on time. So for an update on these efforts, to discuss Rose Lanes and other projects, I've asked Executive Director Steve Witter and Manager of Capital Planning Jamie Snook of TriMet and April Bertelson, our Transit Coordinator for Portland Bureau of Transportation, to join us today and provide you with a very short presentation. Steve and team, I'll turn it over to you.
I'm sorry, Sam, I couldn't find my mute button. Sam?
Yes, you're there?
Okay. Yep,
Okay.
I'm here. I apologize.
No problem.
Okay. Well, Sam, thank you. And good morning, President Warner, Board of Directors. I appreciate having the opportunity here to share an update of the good work that TriMet Metro and the city of Portland have been doing to prioritize transit. Together, we've developed a regional enhanced transit corridor program to increase ridership and improve transit reliability. You've seen these out on the streets. We're starting to see, bus only lanes and red paint more and more. The city of Portland has been a tremendous partner in this great work, and they've taken it even further in developing their own Rose Lane program to continue this work and help transit and transit riders. As the region grows and congestion increases, we're seeing that buses are getting stuck in traffic and trips are taking longer, and this affects ridership. Again, we've heard that we have a shift of folks that really need transit to be reliable and on time. The city understands this importance, and they've been proactive in planning and identifying ways with us to improve transit in the most congested parts of the city. Together, the city and TriMet have taken a data-driven approach to identify where the most delay is and what improvements can really improve transit time and reliability. Together, we've identified and implemented improvements across the city, and the team that's leading that charge is here today to provide an update. We're really excited about the work they've done on the regional ETC program and the Rose Lanes. And it's my pleasure to introduce Jamie Snook, the Manager of Capital Planning, and April Bertelson, a longtime TriMet partner, who's a transit coordinator at PBOT. And they put together a great slide deck, a lot of slides. And so it's, I just ask our team to kind of manage their time, but really excited to be here, and thank you for the time. I'm going to turn it over to Jamie at this point. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, I know that we are short on time, so we will make this very quick, but we just are really appreciative to be able to come here and give you an update. And so what we are going to share is we're going to talk a little bit about ETC and the partnership, and then really the bulk of this presentation will update you on what the Rose Lane project is up to, and then we'll wrap it up. So just as a reminder, what is Regional Enhanced Transit Concept, or ETC? It's all about partnerships, and the partnership to increase ridership and improve transit speed and reliability. And really this means doing context sensitive, low cost improvements that are quickly deployable and make a big difference on our transit riders. So here's a long list of all the different tools in the toolbox. And really the tools are based on what the delay is and how we can improve our operations for our riders. This is really all about partnership and working together, and the City of Portland has been a great partner in this, from the regional concept of the ETC as a concept through the Central City in Motion and the transit
priority spot improvements, and now Roselands, really taking that ETC work and bringing it to a higher level and branding and celebrating with the community what we can do with transit within the city. And so we're really appreciative to work with the city of Portland on this great initiative. I want to do a quick shout out to Metro to set the stage for the policy through the regional work there. And then the work that we've been doing to make sure that we can work with our partners, implement the projects through the STIF funding and through the spot improvement program. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to April to talk about Roselands. April?
Thank you. And indeed, this is a true partnership built by many hands. And I thank you for this opportunity to share with you today more about this. I wanted to start by acknowledging former Commissioner Chloe Udaly, who saw the urgency in making our transit system better and pushing us to kickstart the Roseland project. She received vital assistance from her group of transportation justice advisors, and thanks to their input, the Roseland project puts people first, especially Black, Indigenous, people of color, and transit-reliant community members. So I want to thank Commissioner Joanna Hardesty, who has wholeheartedly embraced this project, and we're very grateful for her support. And I want to thank you, TriMet board, TriMet leadership, and staff, Jamie and many others, for the support of Roselands and other key examples of our collaboration, including the Division Transit Project, through the Enhanced Transit Program and the Transit Priority Spot Improvement Program. Through the pandemic, reliable transit has served as a vital resource for Portlanders and beyond. Frontline workers have relied on it to get to their jobs, to help all of us. People have used it to access medical care and other essential services or daily needs. And in the most challenging times in Portland's history, it has kept our city moving. As we emerge from this pandemic, we, PBOT, don't see the importance of transit decreasing. In fact, it will be more important than ever. More than ever to meet the needs of a recovering city, address climate change, and make progress to build a more equitable community. We need transit that is reliable, fast, frequent, as well as safe, accessible, comfortable, and affordable for all. And we look forward to working with you to achieve this together. We'll highlight this first slide, which I think is one of our high points of transit priority and partnership with the county, TriMet, and the city to convert a lane on the Burnside Bridge headed eastbound to get your buses moving and all the people on them. Next slide. So the Roseland project is PBOT's vision and action for making a bus and streetcar travel faster and more reliable for all Portlanders and beyond. This is a map of the primary Roseland transit network that was adopted by City Council in February 2020. And it is intended to boldly expedite and implement the city's enhanced transit corridors plan with a sense of urgency to address climate change and racial equity. Next slide. So Roselands are really the transit routes where buses and streetcars get priority on the road in the congested areas. That doesn't mean that all Rose lanes are bus-only lanes or for a min-to-end, but really for pulling from over 20 transit priority tools, some of which Jamie highlighted earlier, and depending upon the context. And go ahead, next slide. We are guided by our Better Off measures, which put outcomes for people first. They were developed with a results-based accountability approach to racial equity. We aim to reduce disparities between Black, Indigenous, and people of color and white people, and while doing so, improve outcomes for all. And leading with our measure to have more comparable commute times for people of color compared to whites. and the rest flow from there. And next slide, thank you. Yep. We are taking a pilot approach as directed by council with this, which across all the new proposed projects. And this includes a 4-step approach and installing pilot projects with low cost designs and materials, monitoring performance, and monitoring and modifying, as needed to refine or mitigate for impacts and help decide what to make permanent. So working towards the success and perfection as a part of the process of the pilot. And our partnership with TriMet is critical to this approach as well, to understand and track the transit performance through the pilot and report on that. Next slide. And a bit of a status update of where, as of December, when we rolled out our online open house and engagement with a status report. As of then, we had 16 projects completed, built in 2019 or after, 18 projects that are funded and in progress, and 25 proposed projects, many that are new that we're looking to identify future for implementation as funding is available. And so we've been unveiling those 25 and continue work on what we can advance next. And that is, all of this is often in partnership with TriMet to help deliver projects and Metro regional program as well. And the next one, thank you. This is a map of all of these projects that I just summarized under the Rose Lane umbrella and the indication of their status. And then it also includes that primary transit line network of Rose Lanes. It is a snapshot from our interactive map, which launched in December. So you can go and visit this and click on projects or lines and learn more about them. And I would take note that these projects are located in the city of Portland, but benefit bus lines that extend far beyond our city limits. And we're happy about that and hope that you are too. This really, we regional benefit at our heart. And I'll begin by highlighting, though, some of the anticipated benefits within the city of Portland based on our estimated analysis. So we do anticipate faster, more reliable transit network. Next slide. Once we can implement all of those completed, funded, and new proposed projects, we will save several minutes for Rose Lane transit lines. A couple of the transit lines could save over 7 minutes from end to end. And we save time across the system. So all benefit from the projects, even more than the transit network. There's other bus lines that are going through those projects. And so that benefit extends beyond even the Rose Lane network. Next slide. Then this time that we save means that people can reach more places in the same amount of time, or go even, reach places even faster than they could before. On this map, there's these 2 maps, one with the pink shading. People in the darker pink areas can reach more jobs and places once we complete these projects. On the other map with the blue shading, jobs and places in those darker areas can be reached by more people. So this means that there's greater access and opportunity for people and businesses across the city, and that's for accessing to jobs in the city as well as beyond. And this is at the heart of why we're doing this and how we hope to continue to monitor and measure the potential benefits for people. And on to the next slide. And so to wrap it up, to let you a little teaser of what's coming soon. We are soon to publish a public involvement report of what we heard during our winter engagement, and a 1-year progress report on summarizing some of what you've seen here and more, as well as continuing to update our interactive map to track the status of projects, and then additional public involvement in the project areas as the projects advance and places across the city. And I encourage you to visit our website to learn more, sign up for updates if you're interested. And as well as see that you can take transit to get your vaccination at the Oregon Convention Center. I look forward to doing that soon. And I will turn it back over to Jamie. Thanks.
Thank you, April. I'm going to do just a really quick wrap up. I know that we're short on time, so I'm going to make this fairly quick. But I just wanted to highlight some of the benefits of this partnership with the City of Portland. So we often talk about the big three, which is the first three projects that we were able to implement, and we were able to implement them before the pandemic. So we were able to evaluate how well they're doing. A couple things I just want to note is that while these improvements are localized, they're small and they're in a specific location, they have benefits that reach beyond that location. So with the big three, we were impacting transit riders from Beaverton to North Portland to Malala to Oregon City to Gresham. And so it has far-reaching benefits beyond just the localized implementation. What we saw was that there was a pretty great travel time savings within those segments. So for Madison, the average during the PM peak was 40 seconds. That actually is about a 60 to 70% travel time savings during that, or 26 to 76 travel time savings in that segment. Northwest Everett was another one of the top three, first three, and it was 1 minute and 12 seconds on average. And the bus lane over the Burnside Bridge was almost 1.5 minutes. So pretty significant travel time savings. One thing we were able to do before the pandemic was we did an onboard survey of our riders on the projects that we had implemented. And what we found is that the riders loved it. People loved the bus priority. Another interesting thing that came out of this survey was that while people were only seeing 40 seconds to 1.5 minutes of travel time savings, it was perceived of over 5 minutes to over 8 minutes of travel time savings. So every second on the bus means something to our transit riders. Another interesting note is that we asked people if they were riding more or less, and 11% of those surveyed said they were riding more. So this really proves that we were meeting our goals of increasing ridership, improving transit speed and reliability. We also were able to ask them some open-ended questions about what the feedback on the bus priority lane was. And it's really great to see that these are really hitting a lot of the goals that we have, both for TriMet, for the city, and for the region, is allowing the travel time savings to spend more time with my family. Really, this is how we can go to combat congestion and climate change. Really providing that incentive to go downtown more and do more things. And generally speaking, that people were really happy and loved the ETC, the transit priority benefit that they were getting. So with that, thank you so much for allowing us the opportunity to come and give you a briefing. We really appreciate it. And here is some more information on the Rose Lane project through the City of Portland. And that concludes our presentation.
Okay, well, thank you. Mr. Board Chair, are there any questions or do you want me to continue on?
Let's pause for a moment, see if there's any comments or questions by the board. Great report and presentation, you guys. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Today's a day of kudos. I don't mean to be playing one note, but boy, oh boy, great information on all fronts. Congratulations to both the TriMet staff and the City of Portland staff. I'm just tickled pink to know that we have two different council members who have helped us shepherd this to this point. And of course, it wouldn't have gotten here without your leadership, Jamie and April, in what you're doing to really bring this forward. So this is all fantastic news, and congrats. Fully support it.
I'm not hearing any other comments. So Sam, please proceed. And thanks again, folks.
Well, thank you. First of all, I just want to thank Steve and Jamie and really thank April for joining us today. And may I say that we at TriMet are so appreciative of your support, April, and your agency's support of transit. I would also like to thank Director Chris Warner, Commissioners Joanne Hardesty, and also Chloe Udaly for their support here. So thank you very much. And with that, finally this morning, throughout the pandemic, our frontline employees have been our heroes, bravely powering through to keep our community moving and also safely getting essential workers and those who really rely on transit to where they need to go. But this morning, I would like to honor two of our bus operators who are dual heroes, not only for the service that they provide us every day, but for a recent incident in which they stepped up. This morning, I want to introduce to you Operator Craig Brown. I know I've seen him on. Just want to make sure that he's with us here and his video is going. Thank you. So last week, Operator Brown saved a life. And I want to repeat this to everyone. Operator Brown last week saved a life. He and Operator Johnson also helped him. Unfortunately, Operator Johnson could not be here. But the story that occurred was Operator Brown spotted a woman who jumped out of her car and ran onto the harbor viaduct near the Tillicum crossing. He noticed that she looked distressed and feared that she was going to jump from the ramp. Operator Brown pulled his bus over and approached the woman. He wrapped his arms around her and told her he wanted to get her some help. Moments later, Operator Johnson came by in his bus and saw what was happening, and he stopped to help. Together, they were able to move the woman onto the bus and really wait for help to arrive. The woman said to both of them that she wanted to die that day. And Operator Brown and Operator Johnson didn't let that happen. So I want to tell you, Operator Brown, that it touches my heart to know that we have such caring and empathetic employees and people like you working here at TriMet. Both you and Operator Johnson embody not only our mission and our values, but the true meaning of humanity. And I want to really thank you for that. Operator Brown, it's my sincere pleasure to express my appreciation for you responding bravely. And I want to personally thank you for your selfless actions. So I'll pause here and say that we have an award for you that we will be given to you your next day of work, just as well as that I'm going to set a date up for you and I when the time is right to take you to lunch and really sit down and talk with you and celebrate this year. But I wanted to introduce you to the board, and I wanted to pause here and just open it up if you have anything to address the board about, and then I'll turn it over to you, President Warner, if you wanted to address the employee.
Just want to say thank you for all the acknowledgement. I don't really have nothing to say. It was something I think anybody would have done at that time.
Well, thank you very much. Absolutely, thank you. President Warner and board, any comments?
Well, gosh, what a great story and what a great performance by our employees to really recognize the crisis that was going on there and be able to provide some assistance. Thank you for Sam for bringing these folks forward for opportunity for the board to acknowledge them. I just want to say thank you very much, and maybe some of the other board members want to say something too.
Yes, Mr. Brown, I would certainly applaud you for doing the right thing. You could have kept on going on your bus. You could have said, hey, whatever happens, happens. That has nothing to do with me. But you brought humanity to TriMet and to your job, realizing that intervening to help someone in need is what we should all be about. So thank you very much for doing that, for stepping up and stepping out and performing above and beyond what you're normally called to do. So thank you.
I guess I can jump in then. Director Gonzalez, I saw you unmute yourself as well. Operator Brown, thank you just so much for that act of selflessness and service. There was a quote that I'm just reminded by when I heard that story, and it is, everybody is somebody's somebody in life. And so just wanted to share that. And, you know, perhaps for that woman, you were that somebody that day that she needed. So thank you again for just exemplifying what it is to truly serve our community and our members. And that's all I have, but thank you.
Thank you.
The only thing I can think to add to all of this, Mr. Brown, is you bring great honor to the agency and to the uniform and to the public service we all represent. Thank you so much for taking a brief moment to make a very humane decision.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. I just want to echo what my other fellow directors have said. And I know in a short window, you had to stop and analyze and make a quick decision, plus the safety of those on the bus, if the bus was full, and decide on your own safety and her safety. And that split the time that you had was really crucial, but it shows compassion. It shows love for those that are part of our community. And I just want to say thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
And I just want to echo the same sentiments that others have already said. I can't add to it, just thank you.
Thank you.
I'll just say one thing, which is that our bus and max operators, you know, are out there in the community all the time and keeping an eye on what's happening. And this is just another example of how our employees really have an impact beyond just providing good service to our riders. You know, we've heard stories in the past of bus drivers coming to the aid of folks, and so it's just heartwarming, and thank you for saving a life. It's the type of thing that's impossible to measure, but we're very grateful.
Thank you, ma'am.
Again, thank you to both Operator Brown and Johnson. And Sam, I'm going to turn it back to you if you have any final comments, and unless you proceed, if you have anything else on the general manager's report this morning.
Yeah, thank you, President Warner. Just wanted to end with Operator Brown. Thank you for your service and dedication to our region and the humanity efforts that you've shown us. Want to say thank you, and we will be in contact with you very soon. And with that, Mr. President, I conclude my report.
Thank you very much. Any questions for the general manager based on the presentation or other things that the board wants to talk about with him? I'm seeing nobody raising their hand, so I'm going to move on then to the consent agenda. And you can see that now on the screen. The consent agenda for anybody watching for the first time includes items that are considered to be routine and may be approved by the board in one blanket motion. However, any board member may remove an item from the consent agenda for discussion or questions by requesting such prior to the consideration of this portion of the agenda. I'll point out we have only two items on the consent agenda. The first is approval of the board meeting minutes of March 24, 2021, and then we have a resolution, excuse me, yes, a resolution that would be requiring, indicating that ordinances be read by title only, because we do have an ordinance on the agenda today. So first off, is there any item that anybody, any board member would like to have removed from the agenda or have questions about? Hearing none, then is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
Move to accept.
Second.
That's Keith. Is there a second?
Linda, second.
Great, thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing none, then I'm going to call the question. All those in favor of the consent agenda as presented, please signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing none, the motion is approved unanimously. Thank you very much. Let's move on. We have three resolutions on our agenda for the day. The first is Resolution 21-04-15, which is authorizing a new working wage agreement with Division 757 of the Amalgamated Transit Union. I think it's probably one of our most important agenda items for the day, or is the most important one. So, Mr. General Manager, I turn to you to introduce this item.
I am extremely excited, Mr. President, members of the board. I could not be happier to bring this resolution before you today. It asks for authorization to execute a new working and wage agreement between TriMet and ATU 757. This is the result of hard work and compromise, coming together to find common ground, fair balance between the needs of our union employees and the agency as we together continue to provide safe and reliable transit services for our community. I want to stop and just really thank ATU President Shirley Block and all of her entire negotiating team. Really appreciate it. I know Bill's on today, but also I want to thank our negotiating team, Director of Labor and Employee Relations, Laird Kuzak, Executive Director Kim Sewell, and also Executive Director Roland Hoskins, and the TriMet negotiation team for their determination and efforts that led to this contract agreement. I also want to thank our union employees at TriMet who voted to approve this agreement. I appreciate the hard work of our union employees. It does not go unnoticed. We know that you are the backbone of our agency. I strongly recommend the board's approval of this resolution. The agreement would be retroactive to December of 2019, and it will run through November of 2022. There are many details of the agreement in your packet, and both Executive Director Kim Sewell and Laird Kuzak, they are here to answer any questions. But before I do that, I want to say two things. One is that I was able to talk with Krista Cardova from the union, and Shirley is not able to be here. She's on vacation and she's out of cell phone range. But she sent the message to me to just thank all of us for the partnership. She wanted to thank her union members, just as well as the agency, for coming together and working the details out and really coming to this agreement here. So I want to just thank Shirley and the negotiating team, but I also want to give Kim Sewell and Laird, Roland Hoskins, and the TriMet negotiations teams also. I want to just thank them of all of the time and the effort that they put in to make this approved, to come to an agreement and for us to be able to ratify it and bring it to you today. So I'll pause here, President Warner, for any questions or answers.
Thank you, Sam, for that introduction. What I would say first off, again, agreeing with you and recognizing our staff and the union folks for working hard. This was a lot of work. I know there was a lot of hours spent on this, and hopefully you'll acknowledge that with our team and do whatever you can to help recognize them and deal with that time they spent away from their families and other things. So again, I think it's a great piece of work. I will point out for anybody watching that the board has been briefed pretty thoroughly on the contract negotiation and the elements of it, and they are in the packet. If you want to look at them online, you can see all of the elements. But I think I'll turn it over to the board to see if they have any questions or comments before we actually take a motion to approve this item. But I think it will be approved quite easily, Mr. General Manager. So I'm going to turn to the board. Comments, questions?
Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. I really applaud the ATU 757 and TriMet for coming to an agreement that was soundly approved by the membership of ATU. I think that's it's a lot of hard work and it's very challenging. And typically, negotiations are can be very adversarial and oftentimes become personal. And so I again applaud both sides for getting that work done. But I must say that I was disappointed at some of the testimony this morning in regard that came from ATU leadership, because we can't do anything about what happened yesterday. This is a place where the ATU 757 and their members and the management of TriMet have come together in an agreement. And so they must move forward with that agreement, knowing that yesterday is yesterday's news and cannot be changed. Adversarial posturing is destructive and a distraction to the goal of responsible leadership, to work in concert with management to serve the public interest. I'll say that again. Adversarial posturing is destructive and a distraction to the goal of responsible leadership to work in concert with management to serve the public interest. So please, going forward, remember that your responsibility as a leader is to work together with the leadership of TriMet and vice versa to the best interest of the public. Thank you.
You're muted.
You're muted, Bruce.
Thank you very much. Sorry about that. So again, is there any other board members who wish to provide input before I call for a question? Call for a motion, I should say. I'm seeing none.
Well, I just want to say real quickly, just thank you to both sides for putting together a contract that really serves the interests of both management and labor.
I just want to piggyback and say thank you particularly to our ATU members for the last several weeks for coming and testifying and sharing their input and their stories. I know that sometimes 8:30 in the morning is not the ideal time, but just really want to appreciate folks for crafting just very, just powerful stories of why this relationship matters, your commitment and passion to work at TriMet. Thank you. It just really carries through, and really also appreciate our team, our labor team at TriMet for reaching to this point.
I'd like to just simply state that this process revealed how important the upward mobility pathways are for our workforce. It really revealed how vital apprenticeship programs are as a piece of the puzzle. It showed us how critical the apprenticeship program is and how much it's important that we answer how we maintain a robust pipeline and a robust apprenticeship model as we transition technologies and all of the other transitions that we make to our infrastructure. So I really I congratulate everyone that stuck to it and worked to the final hour to get through this agreement. And I want to also acknowledge that it would be really vital for us to leverage all of that interest and all of that passion for these programs as we look ahead past the agreement to address all of the important issues that came up in the process. There is so much work left to do now in making sure that those programs really deliver on the value to our workforce, to the state of Oregon's economy, and to the industries that we serve. Thank you so much, and let's continue this great conversation of how we adapt to what's ahead. Thank you.
All right, with that then, is the board ready to make a motion to approve resolution number 20-04-15?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
I hear a motion by Director Edwards. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Director Gonzalez, I believe.
Yes.
Is there any further discussion on this resolution? Hearing then I'm going to call the question. All those in favor of the motion to approve resolution number 20-04-15, please signify by saying aye.
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 Is there any opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing none, the motion is approved unanimously. And congratulations to TriMet staff and to the ATU. This is good, and hopefully we can get started a little earlier on the next contract negotiations. I won't be here, but again, that's my desire and goal for you all who will get to deal with it. So again, thank you all. Let's move then to the next resolution, which is resolution 21-04-16. Which is authorizing the transfer of appropriated fund within the fiscal year 2021 budget. Mr. General Manager, is that you going to lead us off?
Absolutely. Thank you, President Warner and board. This resolution requests authorization from the board for the transfer of $3.875 million from TriMet's contingency fund to address three matters that were not known when the FY 2021 budget was adopted. The first is a transfer of $1.9 million to the city of Portland for the Portland streetcar. This transfer is a result of an IGA that was signed within the scope of the CARES Act. The second is a transfer of $1.475 million to TriMet's IT division to cover fees associated with a comprehensive Oracle system review. And then the third is to transfer $500,000 for a post-employment benefits line item that will help ensure pension and post-employment benefit plans do not exceed the budget. Board action is required for these transfers under Oregon budget law. Your approval of the resolution is recommended to ensure TriMet remains in compliance. And I have Executive Dee Brookshire and Director Nancy Young Oliver here to take any questions if you have. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam. First off, Dee or I'm sorry.
Nancy.
Nancy, thank you. Sorry about that. Dee or Nancy, do you have any other comments before we ask for board questions?
No, there's nothing to add. Sam described it very well. Thank you.
All right, good. So questions, comments by the board?
I move
Seeing
a
no,
motion to accept the resolution. Linda?
I have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Fairly straightforward agenda items. Is there any further discussion on resolution 21-04-16? Hearing none, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor of then the motion to approve resolution 21-04-16, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing none, the motion is approved unanimously. Thank you very much. All right, let's move on to the last resolution, which is resolution 21-04-17, which is authorizing a contract with Technology Integration Group for mobile access router, as we call it, I guess, MAR, and then MARSE, MAR-CMI procurement, implementation and installation and warranty services. There's a mouthful. Mr. General Manager, do you or staff have a report on this?
Absolutely. Thanks, President Warner and board. This next resolution here before you this morning would authorize a contract with Technology Integration Group, or TIG. This contract supports a critical part of the communications infrastructure on board TriMet's buses and trains, specifically the computer-aided dispatch, the automated vehicle location, the closed-circuit television system, all of our recorders, all of our hop readers, all of our passenger counters, and our passenger information displays. So it connects us with everything. It's time to replace some of this equipment on our vehicles as part of state of good repair and asset management requirements. The resolution before you would authorize a contract with Technology Integration Group. The services provided including decommissioning and disposal of the communications device, installing new technology, providing training and optimizing the system to TriMet's specifications. This total value of this contract is just over $2.4 million over a 10-year period of time. TIG's workforce is 31.7% minority and nearly 36% female, and TriMet will work with them to identify opportunities to use certified subcontractors within the scope of their work. And I recommend your approval of the resolutions. This morning I have here with me our new CIO, Ethan Benetton, and also Director AJ O'Connell, who is here to answer any questions that you have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. General Manager. Questions on this agenda item or comments by the board?
Mr. Chairman, I had a question. And probably because of more ignorance than anything else, I just wanted to know, is the system going to continue to be upgraded over this 10-year span to keep it hack-proof, and so we don't have to, worry about that, or that it's preventative, not reactive?
I can respond to that if you'd like, Sam. This is Ethan Benetton, Chief Information Officer. Thank you for the question, Director Edwards. And yes, we are constantly working to be ahead of information security on every one of our platforms. Information security is always kind of an arms race. So we're constantly working to keep ourselves at the sweet spot. With your support, we've been investing in increasing our vigilance on information security, and that work is continuing as we are growing our team right now. And we take that into account on every one of our projects, including this one. So I hope that answers your question. And if you want to dive deeper, we're happy to go there with you.
Yes, it did. Thank you very much.
I have a question as well. And this again, part of the naivete. Clearly, there's going to be some upgrades, decommissioning of old systems, bringing in new systems. Can you speak to the delta of what sort of functionality these new systems are enabling for us? I know that we've made some leaps and bounds lately with our technology and communications. We just heard a presentation earlier that pointed to some fantastic ideas for how we're leveraging communications and technology. So could you tell us what sort of things that this new MAR system is enabling that our current one may not?
Yeah, Director Gonzalez, thank you for the question. If you're okay with that, Sam, I'd like to introduce that and then ask Director O'Connor to AJ, who you probably know well, to provide a little more details. First of all, I just want to thank you for the question, because so much of the technology that we put out there is part of the unseen infrastructure that's easy to take for granted. Part of what makes things work, and it's very easy to look at the bells and whistles on the surface, and it's really because of the skilled work of people like AJ and his team who are keeping us on the cutting edge that enables these things to roll out, like transit signal priority. So, but I'm not the right person to talk about the details, so I'd like to hand it over to AJ for some more on that.
Sure. Thank you for the opportunity to answer the question. To get at what this new router provides us, you need to understand a little bit about the piece of equipment that it's replacing. So the current mobile access router was provided by our CAD vendor, Init. And way back in 2009, when this board approved the contract with Init for our CAD system, Init approached TriMet and said, we'd like to get into the MAR business. We haven't done it before, and we'll give you $500,000 credit on your account if you will be our first customer for the MAR, for their MAR. So we elected, given the financial implications at the time, we elected to take that, and this was the MAR that we are now replacing. The implication of that is this was in its first foray into this area. It did not perform as well as commercial off-the-shelf MARs. And so what this contract is doing is there's companies that that competed for this contract, that's all they do. They provide these industrialized standard mobile access routers across the board. So we're moving from kind of a bespoke MAR, if you will, to a much more standardized MAR. And what it does for us is, to the previous question from Director Edwards, this is a company that is focused on cybersecurity and will be, because they're selling these MARs all over the country. Specifically, what would be of interest to the board, I believe, and the public, is this specific MAR we have designed in the contract to add a second cellular connection so that we will be able to provide public Wi-Fi on our vehicles with this mobile access router, where that is currently not available on our existing router. That's probably the biggest leap forward in capabilities with this MAR that would be interest to you. I can get into technical differences in how it manages the communication among our internal systems, but that's probably not as pertinent.
Fantastic news. Does this also impact connectivity for the public in shelters and places waiting, or is this more impacting the vehicles themselves?
This is on the vehicles themselves. This is just on the vehicle itself.
Thank you so much.
And just to be clear, it provides the capability to do that. We have a separate project to make that happen and arrange the management and ongoing maintenance of setting up that Wi-Fi. But now we have the capability to do, or we will once we enact this contract, whereas we don't on the current router.
Thank you, thank you. And one more follow-up. I'm not sure who's set up to answer this one, and it has to do with the vendor, recommended vendors' presence in Oregon. Is this an Oregon-based company? Do they have a significant footprint here in the state?
So TIG has a very significant footprint in Oregon. I'm not 100% sure if their corporate offices are in Portland, but they have a pretty large office out in Beaverton at the Lincoln Tower. The actual hardware, though, is that if you notice where we list how they competed, TIG offered us two different hardware providers, and Digi is the one that we have selected, and they are not an Oregon-based company. And actually, none of the actual MARs that were provided were from Oregon.
We have work to do in those other areas. Thank you so much for the information.
You're welcome.
Other board questions?
I move to accept the resolution, Linda.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I second.
Your motion and a second. Is there any further discussion on this resolution? Hearing none, then I'm going to call the question. All those in favor of the motion to approve resolution 21-04-17, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing none, again, the motion is approved unanimously. Thank you very much. Okay, we're going to move on to our ordinance then. That does conclude all of our resolutions this morning, and we'll now consider moving on to or taking action on the proposed ordinance adopting service changes and revisions to route designations in TriMet Service District. I'm going to now turn to TriMet General Manager Shelley Devine for a second reading of this ordinance. Ms. Devine.
Thank you, Mr. Board President. Ordinance number 363 of the Tri-County Metropolitan Transportation District of Oregon, adopting service changes and updating route designations. This is the second reading.
Thank you very much. Mr. General Manager, any comments or anything we need to know since our last meeting? We've actually had two, if I remember right now, first readings of this ordinance. The one that we're before us today was read, and I had a hearing last week. So, Mr. General Manager, anything else we need to know?
Yeah, thanks, President Warner. I think we've covered everything at last week's board meeting. Present with us is Director Tom Mills, if the board or yourself have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. So, board members, you've seen the outreach that has been done to the potentially affected communities of these policy changes. You've seen and heard from the community members through various commenting channels, including last month's and last week's public hearings. You've reviewed and you've approved the findings of equity analysis. So I turn to you. Is there any further discussion? Or is there a motion to adopt this ordinance we can get on the table right away here?
I have a point, a request in the discussion forum. I know that there's a batch of changes that are proposed in this ordinance, and there's a combination of changes to routes, and as well as some changes to levels of service. Some of those levels of service changes are driven by some ridership statistics. So since we're talking so much about ridership and post-pandemic efforts to increase ridership, I was hoping if someone, if either General Manager Dessou or Department Director Tom Mills could speak a little bit to how the ridership changes that we project and hope to see in the months ahead might inform any future decisions regarding the proposed changes today or any proposed service changes influenced by ridership.
So let me start off with Director Mills, and then I'll come in afterwards.
Thank you, Sam. Great question, Ozzy. You know, much of what we're proposing here today is, related to trying to make the service more efficient, oftentimes through eliminating deviations or potentially an unsafe maneuver. We do believe that by reducing or eliminating deviations, we do attract more people to the service because we are, people are able to ride, to make their trip faster. It makes the travel time less. We don't normally do this if the deviation is attracting a lot of riders, but in cases where the deviation is not attracting a lot of riders, then we think it is prudent to really reconsider that deviation because we think we could attract more riders than what we would lose by no longer doing it, or at least doing it less often than we did previously. You know, I will mention the Thurman Street change really is driven by the maneuver that we make at the top of the hill in which we're backing the bus up. You know, there is ridership there. It's not extremely high, but there is ridership there, which is why we do want to replace that service with a different service. The issue that we run into that, of course, is by replacing that service, we're making an add to the system, and which is very costly. And so we're trying to right size the add with the amount of ridership that is there. We certainly hope that that particular change will result in more rides. We do think that by serving the growing Slabtown area in Northwest Portland, we may actually serve a whole new group of riders that really are somewhat untapped. But we also recognize that the route itself is limited. It doesn't go all the way downtown. So there are some challenges there. Certainly, whenever we see increased rides, if people start using a lot, then we'll want, on any of these changes, then we would consider adding more service because we want to maximize the amount of boardings on the system.
Thank you.
Also would like to bring Executive Director Vanetta in. He has a couple points as well.
Yeah, Director Gonzalez, I would say to you, that's an excellent question about service and our future. A couple of things I would note that we need to learn more about what, how many folks are coming back to the office, travel patterns, and what that looks like. So we still need to know a little bit more about what that looks like. But I will tell you this, what we've heard from surveys and what we're just even articles that you see out there, that the most important thing to lure people back to transit is really good service. So frequent service, on-time performance, all of those things that are basic to what we do is going to be imperative for us to bring people back. So it is something that we're looking at, and as we move forward, we're going to be very, concentrating on what that looks like in the future. So I would just say more to come, but we are very cognizant that it's part of our ridership recovery.
Thank you so much. On behalf of District 2, I want to be clear to the public, to the staff, and to my fellow board members how invested I am in making sure that that conversation is alive and well in the district between the 08-09 recession and the pandemic of the last year. District 2 has had some pretty big hits in levels of service. And so to the point of making sure that we've got a level of service that can really help cultivate that demand, I hear a lot in District 2 of interest in getting us to that place once again. And I'd love to just have some real good conversations about how these areas of the region, especially those hard to reach zones, are able to find the right balance. Thank you.
Any other board comments or questions?
This is Lori. I'll just say real quickly that the changes that I'm familiar with in District 4 are aimed to speed up service to the majority of riders. And that is just really important for us to retain riders and increase ridership. So these changes are not in response to the pandemic. It's really in response to long-standing ridership patterns and our goal to, again, speed up trips for our riders.
All right, well, I'll just follow up with a comment that change is tough and hard, and I want to applaud the staff for responding to the many comments that we received on the service changes. And I have great faith that staff will monitor the ridership and the new Northwest Thurman line and determine if in the future we need to do some further changes in terms of frequency and extending hours, because it is an important area. But I definitely agree with staff that having a full-size bus going up that roadway in any way is tough. And then the turnaround is definitely unsafe. So I applaud staff also for actually addressing this safety issue. So thank you. And again, we will work with the residents up there as best we can over the years to ensure they have good access to transit. With that, is there a motion to approve ordinance number 363?
This is Lori, so moved.
Second.
I have a second. All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion on this ordinance? I hear none, so therefore I'm going to call the question, and this is a roll call vote. So Ms. Devine, could you please call the roll?
Thank you, Mr. Board President. We'll start with Director Bauman,
Yes.
Director Edwards,
Yes.
Director Gonzalez, Director
Pardon me,
Gonzalez,
I was muted. Yes.
Director Lewis,
Yes.
Director Simmons,
Yes.
Yes.
I'm not hearing my name. I'm not hearing Shelley, but I vote yes, Shelley.
Yes, I heard you, Director Warner. Hopefully you heard
Okay,
me.
now I
So
hear you.
that,
Good.
okay. Ordinance 363 passes unanimously.
Thank you very much. All right, so that I see is the end of our business meeting. Is there anything else that needs to come before the board this morning, Mr. General Manager?
No further comments. Would just like to thank the board for your time today and really want to thank our employees for the incredible work that they're doing and just thankful to the public. Just stay with us. We're going to continue to make things better and move our economy. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything from the board? All right, I'm hearing nothing, so I'm going to adjourn our business meeting. And I see that we have no briefing this morning, so I believe that we're going to get out of here to allow Director Bauman to meet her noon appointment. So with that, I'm going to sign off and say we'll see you folks again in another month. Thank you.
Excellent.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye now.
The easiest meeting ever.